Hello again YouTube, it's me from Forever Droning On. Today we're going to look at making waypoint missions, flying the Mavic Mini, using the Litchi Mission hub and Virtual Litchi Mission to view our missions on Google Earth. To do this you'll need to download a couple of things. One will obviously be Google Earth. The other is Virtual Litchi Mission, which is this program. It's a free program and I like it, it's really good. Once you've opened Virtual Litchi Mission, you do need to do a little bit of setting up. There's not very much. So click on Setup, change mission settings. So I always set for imperial measurements, it being in the UK, that's what I prefer to use. I never touch anything else on this page. You don't need to touch the watch folder, smoothing, but you do need to look at drone type. Now using this drop down you can see there's quite a few drones. There's one or two that aren't on there because Litchi doesn't work with, for instance, the DJI Mavic Mini 2. I'm using the Mavic Mini, which as you can see has a field of view of 83 degrees. I changed that to 75. It won't affect what the drone sees, but it will affect what we see in Google Earth. It'll give us a narrower field of view. The reason I do this is when I fly the mission, the drone will see slightly more, by about 10 degrees, than you'll see in Google Earth. So if you've set it up slightly wrong, you'll have a slightly bigger frame, so your subject will probably still be in frame, and you can zoom in using your favourite editing software. So we apply that and click OK. Now here's the world. The whole wide world. It's quite big, but it's sort of flattish here. For my purposes, you can either view it as a map or as satellite, and then I always click on labels, so it makes it a bit easier for me to find my way around. These coloured dots with numbers in, we'll come on to those later, and I'll explain what they are. So let's go and find where we're going to fly today. Now I'm going to go to a place near where I live, which can be a bit of a pain to find. That's Andover, zoom in there. Picket 20, that's where we're going to fly today, a place called Picket 20, which is where I fly quite a lot, which is good. Now once we got to this page, you need to just do a little bit more setting up. Click on Settings, Imperial Measurements, Heading Mode, Custom, Finish Action, back to 1, Path Mode, Curve Turns. I've learnt over the last 2 or 3 years that I prefer curve turns. Cruising speed, set that quite high. Maximum flight speed, set that quite high. I have found that they don't make a great deal of difference. Litchi will do its own thing. This is new, photo capture interval. You can either set it to take photographs every few seconds or every few feet by selecting either of these two buttons and changing the parameter here to whatever you want. Default curve size, I leave that about 75%, that seems to work. Default gimbal pitch mode, select focus point of interest, focus POI. That will then always look at your point of interest. Show discover missions, those are the coloured dots I was talking about earlier. With those you can view other people's missions that they've shared on the cloud, and you can actually go and fly them or move them to your location. Online elevation, that speaks for itself. That tells the Litchi how high the ground is above sea level, and you can fly your drone above that. So that's basically the settings all set up. Right, now we've done all the setting, it's time to build a mission. Now for the purposes of this video we're going to pretend that this sports hall is the subject we want to look at. It's something we're really interested in. It could be a church, it could be a building of some kind, it could be almost anything. So we right click on that, and that's a right click, that gives us a point of interest. Gives us the latitude and longitude of that point of interest and the altitude. Now this is useful if you're shooting something particularly tall, say a 100-foot tall building, and you want to get the whole building in, as you would then set that for 50 foot. But for what we're doing, this is quite a low building and we'll be quite a way away from it, so we can leave it as it is. So that's absolutely fine. We can shut that little window down, but the point of interest will stay there. It's now turned blue because it's not highlighted. Now over here, that's a bench, and that's where I sit and fly because I'm too lazy to stand up all the time. So we'll put our first waypoint in there. Waypoint 1, which is at the moment green, and it opens this little window which gives us information about that waypoint. Longitude, the latitude. The altitude must click above ground there. The altitude will now be above the ground, not above the point where it took off. So if the ground slopes, it will follow the slope of the ground as long as the information that Google is giving is correct. Now I always set the first waypoint to 50 foot so I can still see the drone nice and clearly. I'm going to set my cruising speed on here to 15 miles an hour, or rather my speed. I never use the cruising speed because I never find that particularly accurate. There is no curve size at the moment because it's not going anywhere. And we scroll down. The heading is 234 degrees. You'll notice that the little blue drone is pointing straight at waypoint 1, point of interest 1, which is highlighted there. Focus point of interest is clicked. Now this is also new. The photographic intervals. You can make it take photographs every few seconds or every few feet by selecting either feet or seconds and then changing that parameter there. Actions. I'm going to add an action here. I'm going to stay for 15 seconds. That gives me a chance to just check that everything's doing what it should be, the drone is stable, and one thing and another. And I'm also going to add another action, which is going to be start recording. So that's waypoint 1 done. So let's put another waypoint in. Let's put it over here. Now this waypoint we're going to climb up to 100 foot and we're going to reduce our speed to 5 miles an hour. I do find that with the Mavic Minis, if you go much faster than 5 miles an hour, it tends to be a little less stable, particularly when it's flying sideways. So I set that for about 5 miles an hour. Curve size, again, there's no curve yet, so that won't work. Heading, 231. Focus point of interest, 1. The camera's pointing down by -6 degrees. No actions at this point, and I have found that if you're using curved turns, the actions don't work because the drone never actually reaches the waypoint. It sort of interpolates a course between them. So that's that waypoint done. Let's put another one over here and we'll lift this up to 200 foot. So it's going to climb as it goes around the curve. You see, it's put a curve in here now, and now we can change the curve size. No, we can't. Why can't we? Oh no, sorry, we've got to set the cruising speed. Set that to 5 miles an hour again. And you'll notice that there is a line straight back to waypoint 1. That's where I said that at the end of the mission, go back to 1. Still, again, we don't need any actions. Put another waypoint in here. We'll leave that one at 200 foot for now. Speed, 5 miles an hour. Heading will be set by the fact that it's focus POI. The camera's pointing down at 16 degrees. And we'll put one more in here and we'll drop back down to 100 foot, cruising at 5 miles an hour, and everything is good. That's all good. Now if we go back to a waypoint like waypoint 4 here we can adjust the curve size, and you'll see as I move that slider it actually draws the new curve on the map. Others it doesn't. For instance, 5 to 1 it won't, because that's literally just flying it back home. Okay, so at waypoint 5, actions, stop recording, because that will be the entire mission. Close this window down and we'll have a look at the mission now. Waypoint 1, 50 foot. Waypoint 2, 100 foot. waypoint 3, 200 foot, waypoint 4, 200 foot, waypoint 5, 100 foot, and back to 1 at 50 foot. Up here, it tells us that the mission's about 1/3 of a mile long and should take about 4 minutes. I have to say that it's not always that accurate. So now we're ready to view the mission in Google Earth. And with VLM, that's quite easy. We go down to missions, export as CSV, and it will start Google Earth. And there we are. Now you can't see the mission. I always find you have to just scroll back a little bit and then zoom in, and there's our mission in Google Earth. That's exactly where we want it. We've got the point of interest. We can see the path that it'll take. And if we click this arrow over here where it says Litchi Mission, double click on Virtual Mission, we're actually now flying the mission. You can see it's doing what it should be doing. Drop this menu down and we can take out these markers. You can see the track there. We can turn that off, so we only see the waypoints, or we can turn off the waypoint markers, or we can turn off the point of interest marker, or we can turn anything on we want there. We turn it on and off, whichever you prefer. I usually prefer to turn them off depending on what I'm doing, and because sometimes you might be flying 2 parallel tracks and the other track you can see is a little annoying. Ignore the red lines on the horizon, that's for something else I do which is not connected at all to drones. And that will quite happily fly the mission, and you can see now that it's looking at the sports hall exactly as it should be, doing everything it should. It's in exactly the right place and it's flying at the right sort of speed. And at the bottom right hand side here, elevation, that's how high your camera is. No, sorry, that's how high the ground is above sea level. And eye altitude, that's how high your drone is above sea level. So it's that and that, or sorry, eye altitude minus elevation gives us around about 200 foot. So that's the camera or the drone is 200 foot above the ground, which is exactly what we wanted. And it's flying along quite happily all on its own. And hey presto, do be careful with the Mavic Mini, because the Mini doesn't upload the mission to the drone. The mission is driven by the app in the phone or tablet talking to the controller. So if you fly out of range, the mission will stop, and I presume that the drone will then return to home or do whatever action you've told it to do with a loss of signal. But I don't know. I'm not brave enough to try that. So there we go. We've flown the mission. Now you can go back to Virtual Litchi Mission, tweak anything you want, and fly it again as many times as you like to get it exactly how you like it. Once you've got it how you like it, it's time to save the mission. It's missions, save, and then give it a name, flying field mission, and save it. And that's it. That's how it works. That's how it's done. That's all set up, ready to fly now. There are lots and lots of other things you can do. As you can see, there's several things, actions you can do here. This pane on the left hand side, that gives you information that has been passed to Google Earth, and it's a bit more accurate than the information you get here. For instance, smooth mission distance 0.23 miles, mission duration 2.29 minutes, which is different to what it says here. Excuse me. And you may sometimes get a red message here, which is an error. Look at that, see what it says. The most common one I've found is excessive altitude change. See if I can emulate that. I will take that up to 500 foot and then export it as a CSV. and there you can see it as it shoots up there. That's the high point. But if we go back to VLM, we get this excessive altitude change for leg 1. But that's alright, we can always edit that, and that's the idea. Right, so we're done with VLM and the Mission Hub. We're done with Google Earth. We'll discard that because we know we can reload it anytime you like. And now it's time to go flying.
Right then, we've made it to the flying field. It's a beautiful late summer's day, although there is a little bit of breeze, and the Mavic Minis are a little bit fussy about breeze, so I'll probably get a wind warning up at some point. Right, so now to start our mission. First of all, you must be in PGPS mode and not cinematic or sports mode, otherwise it won't start. Go to the left hand top of the screen and press FPV, and that opens up some options. Click on waypoint, and you'll notice that the map and the camera feed have swapped location. You can swap them back just by simply tapping the camera view, and it'll come back in, or swap them back by pressing map view. On the left hand side of the screen now you'll see we've got some folders, some discs and so on. We want the folder which is at the top. Click that, and there's our flying field mission. You must of course be connected to the internet one way or another. I've got my tablet connected through my cell phone, using it as a hotspot, and then click load, and it loads up the mission, and we can see the mission that we looked at earlier on the Mission Hub using VLM, and that's ready to fly now. So let's give it a go. Press the play button and you'll come up with this screen which tells you to start mission. Now you can choose to start from any of the waypoints, and I'm going to start from waypoint 1. So we click go, and off goes the drone, and it'll climb up to the 50 foot as we said, and then it will wander across quite rapidly to waypoint 1. Let's bring the map down a bit. And at waypoint 1 it should wait for 15 seconds, start recording, and then start the mission. You remember we asked it to wait for 15 seconds, and off it goes. We wait for 15 seconds just to check that everything is stable. And as you can see on the camera view, it's focusing on the point of interest, which is the sports hall. It won't actually get to waypoint 2 because we've put curved turns in, and it follows a track around, and now it's slowed right down to 4 miles an hour. The reason I do this, I've found with the Mini, if you fly faster than this, particularly sideways, the gimbal becomes a little bit unstable, and the resultant video can be a little bit wobbly. It's much easier to speed up a video in post rather than it is to stabilize it. So I always fly it very slowly, and that seems to work for me. There we go, it's passing waypoint, coming towards waypoint 3, and it'll turn across. You notice it's still focusing on the sports hall, which is our point of interest. Now it's not that far away at the moment. How far are we? We're only 500 foot away, but believe me, it's a speck in the sky. I can see it, it's still within line of sight. I wouldn't want to go any further than this with the Mini. With the Phantom and the Mavic, I've been quite a bit further away and you can still see it, but this drone is very small. And I've got a wind warning. I thought I'd probably get a wind warning, which I can see on my screen. If you're relatively close to home and relatively low, you can't ignore the wind warnings, but it does seem to be a bit oversensitive, the Mavic Mini. Right, we're coming round now to the next waypoint, and it should get back to waypoint 5 momentarily, where it will stop recording, and then it will fly back to waypoint 1 considerably faster, because it's not videoing then, and I let it have its head, if you like. and fly back, get it back in as quick as possible. As you can see, as I can see, it's losing height as it comes back to the final waypoint. And there we are, it stopped at the final waypoint.
Recording stopped.
It stopped recording, and now it's flying back to waypoint 1. You'll probably be able to hear it shortly. There we go, back at waypoint 1, and it'll just sit and hover there now until I give it a command, because I told it at the end of the mission to go back to waypoint 1, and it'll sit there until either I give it a command or the battery reaches critical and it'll land. I'm not going to let it do that. I never fly my batteries below 30%, just in case. And that is how we do that. We'll have a look at the video that I've shot in a moment, and hopefully everything will be alright. Thank you very much for watching.
Well, here we go, looking at the video we've shot. The first section you see here, it's flying across to waypoint 2 at about 15 miles an hour. And when it starts to turn any second now, you'll notice it slows right down to 5 miles an hour. As I said earlier, I do this because it means that the camera is more stable. Things to note when flying the Mavic Mini using Litchi: the mission is not uploaded to the drone. It's flown by your app in your device, which controls the drone. Basically, it takes over your joysticks, although obviously they don't physically move. So if you go out of range of the radio, it'll all stop, and I assume fly back to home, depending on how you set up your drone in the first place. I am very, very impressed with the Mavic Mini. It's a brilliant little drone. It doesn't like high winds. It's not a Mavic Pro by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a very useful little drone. If on the right weather conditions, and as long as you don't want to fly 100 miles away or anything like that, it does the job beautifully. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. As I've said before, it's not a tutorial, it's just how I do things. If you take anything from this, it's fine. If not, don't worry. If there's anything you think I can change, leave a comment. Please like it, please subscribe. I'd love you to subscribe. It doesn't cost anything, and it's always nice to see a new subscriber. Thanks again. Fly safe, stay safe, forever droning on.